Must be nice being rich while the rest of us struggle. My sister scoffed. After burning through her savings, she expected me to rescue her again. But when I moved away and cut every financial tie, 41 missed calls proved just how much they needed me more than they ever admitted. When my sister sneered, "Must be nice having money while your family struggles," I swear I felt something in me snap. My name's Noah. I'm 28 and I used to think family loyalty meant helping whenever you could. I don't think that anymore. I learned the hard way that sometimes the people closest to you don't want help. They want a lifeline they can keep cutting until you drown trying to save them. I come from a small Midwestern town where everyone knows everyone, and money is the unspoken measure of worth. My parents weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. Dad worked construction until his back gave out, and Mom taught part-time at the local elementary school. They always drilled one thing into me and my sister Emily: take care of each other. Back then, that sounded sweet. Now it feels like a curse. Emily's 2 years younger than me, 26 going on 16 if you ask me. She was always the golden child. I was the quiet one who did his homework, worked part-time jobs, and saved every dollar I could. She was the one who just needed a little help every other week. Growing up, if Emily forgot her lunch, I gave her mine. If she wrecked her car, Dad asked me to lend her money from my college fund because you're the responsible one, son. I did it every time because that's what family was supposed to do. Fast forward a decade and not much had changed except the stakes were higher. After college, I got a decent job in software development, moved to the city, and worked my way up. I wasn't rich by any means, but I was careful. I budgeted. I invested. I made sure my bills were always paid on time. Emily, on the other hand, went through jobs like tissues. She had a new passion project every few months. 1 month, it was a candle business. The next, she wanted to become an influencer. She'd post filtered photos with captions like, "Trust the process sparkles," while asking me to spot her for rent because the algorithm's just slow right now. At first, I helped. I really did. I paid her phone bill just this once. I helped her make a budget she never followed. I even paid off her credit card once after she cried over the phone about debt collectors calling her. But eventually, I noticed something. She never actually wanted to get better. She wanted to keep playing the victim and let me play savior. Things came to a head last winter. I just gotten promoted to senior developer, and for the first time, I was thinking about buying my own place. I called my parents, excited to share the news. Mom congratulated me, but Dad's tone was oddly flat. "That's great, son," he said. "Hey, your sister's been going through a rough patch. Maybe you can help her out a bit, just until she gets back on her feet." I asked, "Rough patch meaning what?" Well, he hesitated. "She quit her job, said it was too toxic. But she's really trying, Noah. She just needs a little cushion." A little cushion turned out to be $2,500 in rent and bills she'd ignored for months. I told him gently that I couldn't just keep bailing her out. That's when Mom sighed into the phone and said, "You've always had such a good heart, honey. Don't harden it now." That sentence stuck with me not because of what she said, but what she meant. In their eyes, being good meant sacrificing myself so others could stay comfortable. A few days later, Emily called. No hello, no small talk. So Dad said, "You're being weird about helping me." "I'm not being weird," I said. "I just think you need to start managing your money better." She laughed, actually laughed. "Oh my gosh, listen to Mr. Budget Planner. You think just because you have a steady job, you're better than me?" I took a deep breath. "No, Emily, I think I'm just tired of fixing problems you keep making." Her tone shifted, cold sharp. "Must be nice having money while your family struggles." She said, "Real brotherly of you." And that was it. That line, the way she said it, like I owed her something, like my success was a personal betrayal. I hung up before saying something I'd regret, but the anger stayed with me all night. For weeks, things were tense. I didn't visit for Christmas. I told them I had a work project, which was true, but also an excuse. My parents called, texted, even guilt-tripped me a little. "Emily misses you. Mom said she's trying." But every time I saw her latest Instagram story, new outfits, brunch with friends, a weekend getaway, I felt my blood boil. She wasn't trying. She was coasting on everyone else's patience. Then came the blow-up. It was early spring. I drove home one weekend for Dad's birthday, thinking maybe it was time to patch things up. I walked into the house with a gift and some good whiskey I'd bought for him. Emily was already there, sitting on the couch, scrolling her phone, looking like she hadn't worked a day in months. The moment she saw me, she smirked. "Well, look who decided to visit the peasants." I forced a smile. "Hey, Emily." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, don't be fake. I know you're just here to show off how well you're doing. What's next? Going to talk about your fancy job and your big city apartment?" I glanced at Dad, hoping he'd say something, but he just sighed and looked at his drink. "Let's not start," he muttered. Emily kept going. "You know what's funny? You act like you're self-made, but you forget all the times Mom and Dad helped you. Who do you think paid for your first car, your college textbooks, You wouldn't be anywhere without them or me. I stared at her speechless. Without you, I repeated. You mean the same you who borrowed from my college fund to fix your car? The same you who still owes me $2,000 from last year? She scoffed. You're so dramatic. It's just money. You have plenty. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I'd spent years believing being kind meant being forgiving, but maybe being kind also meant knowing when to stop letting people walk over you. I set the whiskey on the counter and turned to Dad. Happy birthday, I said quietly. I'll see you later. As I walked toward the door, Emily called after me. Oh, come on, don't storm off. You're seriously mad over money. Grow up. I didn't even look back. That night, I got a call from my manager. A job offer in Seattle. Better pay, bigger challenge, a fresh start. It felt like fate handing me an escape route. I accepted. I didn't even tell my family right away. I just started packing. 2 days later, I told them over dinner. I got a new job, I said. I'll be moving across the country next month. Mom clapped her hands, trying to sound supportive. That's wonderful, sweetie. Emily, of course, had to chime in. Oh, so now you're too good for all of us. It's not like that, I said. It's a great opportunity. She leaned back, arms crossed. Yeah, sure. Just running away so you don't have to deal with your family's problems anymore. I put my fork down. Emily, I've been dealing with your problems for years. Maybe it's time you deal with your own. Her voice rose. You think you're some kind of hero because you moved out and got a job? Newsflash. Not everyone gets lucky like you. Lucky, I said quietly. You call working every weekend, saving every dollar, and saying no to every party lucky? That's when she snapped. Whatever. Enjoy your perfect little life while the rest of us struggle. I didn't answer. I just stood up and said, I'm not your bank, Emily. She glared at me like I'd insulted her religion. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. A message from Dad. Help her or don't bother coming home. I stared at the screen for a long time, feeling my stomach twist. That night, I made a decision I didn't think I ever would. I cut every financial tie, and by sunrise, my phone lit up with 41 missed calls from Emily, from Mom, from Dad. Each one a reminder that the line between love and obligation had finally snapped. But that was only the beginning, because what happened after I left changed everything. The morning after those 41 missed calls, I woke up with that hollow ache you get after a fight that went too far. The kind where you replay every word in your head, wondering if maybe you should have stayed quiet, taken the higher road. But then I looked at my phone again. 41 missed calls, 15 texts, and one long, guilt-ridden voicemail from my mom. And the ache hardened into something else. I'd finally drawn a boundary and they hated me for it. I didn't call anyone back. I went through the motions at work, packed boxes at night, and told myself this move to Seattle wasn't an escape. It was a reset, a clean slate where I didn't have to be the family ATM, the responsible one, the guy who was supposed to fix everyone else's mess. Still, I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt. These were my parents, my sister, the people who raised me, who I thought would be proud that I was building something for myself. Instead, they acted like I turned my back on them. A few days passed before Mom finally caught me off guard with a call during my lunch break. Her tone was syrupy sweet at first, but I knew that voice. It was her soft entry voice, the one she used before lowering the boom. Oh, honey, she started. We've all been so worried. You didn't have to cut us off like that. You know how your sister can be. She didn't mean what she said. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Mom, she called me selfish for not paying her bills. Dad told me not to come home. What exactly did they mean then? She sighed heavily. You know how your father gets when he's upset. He didn't mean it literally. And your sister? Well, she's just under a lot of pressure. Pressure from what I asked. She doesn't have a job, Mom. She hasn't had one in months. That's not fair, she said, quickly defensive. She's been applying. She's trying to find something that fits. Something that fits. I'd heard that line before. It was code for she doesn't want to work somewhere that doesn't stroke her ego. I can't keep rescuing her, I said quietly. I'm moving, Mom. I need to focus on my own life. There was silence on the other end. Then the shift, that slight edge in her tone that always made me feel like I was 12 again. You know, she said I never thought I'd see the day when my son valued money more than family. That one stung, even though I saw it coming. She knew exactly how to twist the knife. Not through yelling, but through disappointment. That's what made it work. I didn't answer. I just said, I love you, Mom, but this isn't about money. And hung up before she could keep going. That evening, Emily posted a picture on Instagram. Her at some fancy rooftop bar, drink in hand, captioned, when your family turns their back on you, but God doesn't. I laughed out loud when I saw it, one of those bitter, disbelieving laughs that sound more like a choke. There she was, the family martyr living her truth for likes and sympathy comments. And the comments poured in, You're too good for them. Stay strong, Queen. They'll regret it. She liked everyone. Meanwhile, my mom reposted one of those cryptic Facebook memes the next morning. A family that forgets loyalty isn't a family at all. Guess who it was aimed at? I thought about calling them again, clearing things up, explaining that I wasn't abandoning anyone, but I knew how that conversation would go. They'd twist my words. Emily would cry. Dad would guilt-trip me about turning my back on my blood. So instead, I poured myself into preparing for the move. But just when things started feeling peaceful again, Emily found a new way to get under my skin. One Saturday, as I was boxing up my computer equipment, I got a notification from my bank. A $450 charge to an Uber account I didn't recognize, then another for food delivery, then another for online shopping. My heart sank. I called the bank thinking maybe my card got stolen, but the representative said something that made my jaw drop. Sir, the charges are linked to a secondary card holder on your account, a Miss Emily Carter. I nearly dropped the phone. What do you mean, secondary card holder? I never authorized that. Sir, she was added about a year ago. Same last name, matching address to your parents' house. I froze. I remembered now. A year earlier, Emily had begged me to co-sign for a new card because hers kept getting declined. It's just temporary, she'd said. I need to order supplies for my candle business. I'll pay it all off before the end of the month. I'd agreed stupidly naively, and then forgotten about it when she promised she'd cancel it. Freeze it. I told the bank rep, my voice shaking. Freeze it now. When I texted Emily, she replied instantly. Are you serious right now? You froze my card. I was in the middle of getting groceries. I typed back, you've been charging hundreds on my account. Without asking, her reply came fast. Relax. I was going to pay it back. You've got money. Why are you being so stingy? That word again, stingy, like being responsible, was a moral flaw. I didn't answer. I blocked her number, changed every password I could think of, and spent the rest of the evening in a fog of disbelief. I thought Emily's entitlement had limits. Turns out it didn't even have brakes. 2 days later, I got a call from Dad. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me I should. What is wrong with you, Noah? He snapped before I could even say hello. Good morning to you too, I said. Don't you smart mouth me. Emily called me in tears because you froze her account and embarrassed her in front of her friends. I blinked. Dad, she was stealing from me. She wasn't stealing. He shot back. She was borrowing. You're her brother. You're supposed to help. I've helped for years, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I've paid her bills, her debts, her— Oh, stop keeping score, he interrupted. Family doesn't keep score. No, I said quietly. Family doesn't exploit each other either. For a moment, there was silence. Then he said something I'll never forget. You've changed, Noah. Ever since you got that city job, you act like you're better than everyone else. I almost laughed, but it came out sounding more like a sigh. Dad, I'm just trying to live responsibly. You taught me to work hard to plan ahead. That's what I'm doing. Well, maybe you learned the wrong lessons, he said bitterly, because family comes before money. And then he hung up. That night, I sat in my half-empty apartment, surrounded by boxes, staring at the ceiling, and realized something. They didn't actually see me. Not as a son, not as a brother, just as a resource, a lifeline, the walking wallet who never said no. And now that I was the villain. The following week, my parents announced a family dinner before my move. I almost didn't go, but guilt still has a way of sinking its hooks in you. So I showed up. Big mistake. The minute I walked in, Emily hugged me fake and tight, then whispered in my ear, "Hope you're not planning to make this awkward." I pulled back, forcing a smile. That depends on whether you plan to ask for more money. She rolled her eyes. You really can't let things go, can you? Dinner was tense to say the least. Mom made roast beef and mashed potatoes, but no one talked much. Every sentence felt like stepping on glass. Halfway through, Dad cleared his throat. Your mother and I wanted to talk about something, he said, folding his hands. We think you should reconsider moving so far away. I set my fork down. Why? Because Mom said softly. We're worried about Emily. She's been struggling emotionally since all this drama. I stared at them. So you want me to stay because Emily's upset that I won't pay for her lifestyle? Don't be cruel. Mom said, eyes narrowing. She's family. You're abandoning her when she needs you most. I'm not abandoning anyone, I said. I'm protecting myself. Dad's jaw tightened. You're being selfish. There it was, the family motto dressed up as a moral lesson. I felt the old guilt rising in my chest, but this time I pushed it down. Then Emily spoke, voice dripping with mock sweetness. You know, if I had even half your salary, I'd help out without making such a big deal about it. I turned to her slowly. You'd help? You mean like when I paid off your credit card and you went on vacation 2 weeks later, or when I covered your rent and you bought a new iPhone? Her smile faltered. You don't have to humiliate me. I'm not, I said quietly. I'm reminding you that generosity without gratitude isn't kindness. It's stupidity, and I've been stupid for a long time. Mom gasped. No. But before I could respond, Dad stood up, voice booming. That's enough. You've made your point now. Either you apologize to your sister or you can leave. For a moment, no one breathed. Then I pushed back my chair, stood up and said, okay, and I left. I didn't look back. That night, I drove back to my apartment in silence, the road lights flashing across the windshield like clock ticks. By the time I got home, there were 5 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Emily, and a single text from Dad. Don't bother coming home next Christmas. I didn't answer. I didn't cry either. I just sat there, staring out the window, feeling something settle inside me. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. They'd made their choice and I was about to make mine, but I had no idea just how far they were about to go next, or how much lower they'd sink before I finally broke. I thought things couldn't get worse after that dinner. I thought I'd reached the point where I was numb enough that nothing my family did could surprise me anymore. But I was wrong. What came next didn't just sting, it hollowed me out. It made me realize that once people learn they can take from you, they'll start believing they deserve to. And when you finally stop giving, they'll do whatever it takes to take again. The next few weeks were a blur. My apartment slowly emptied into cardboard boxes, and the more I packed, the lighter I felt. Every dish wrapped, every shelf cleared, felt like closing a chapter one should have ended years ago. My manager had already arranged temporary housing in Seattle, and my start date was coming fast. I told myself once I got on that plane, I'd be free. But freedom, it turned out, wasn't something I'd get easily, not with my family. It started with small, suspicious things. A strange call from my bank asking if I had recently applied for a car loan. Then an email from a credit monitoring service I barely used warning me about a new account opened in your name. I brushed it off at first, maybe a glitch. But then a letter arrived. It was from a financing company I'd never heard of, confirming an application for a personal loan of $18,000. The letter congratulated me on my new opportunity. My stomach dropped. The address listed was my parents' home. I called the company immediately. Hi, I said, trying to sound calm. I think there's been a mistake. I didn't apply for any loan. The woman on the other end asked for my name and the reference number, typing away. Then she said, it looks like your application was submitted online 2 days ago. The listed contact number matches the one ending in 14229. Is that yours? My throat went dry. That was my parents' landline. Who signed the application, I asked. Let me check. It says Emily Carter. I felt my pulse pounding in my ears. She's not me. That's my sister. Oh, the woman said, her tone shifting slightly. Well, since she used your information, we'll need to start a fraud investigation. Fraud. That word hit harder than it should have. I hung up, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. Emily had crossed a line I didn't even think she knew existed. She wasn't just borrowing my money anymore. She was stealing my name. I called her immediately. She answered on the second ring, sounding annoyed. What now? What now? I repeated, trying not to yell. You used my identity to apply for a loan. There was a pause. Oh, that. Calm down. It's not a big deal. I just needed a cosigner. I didn't cosign anything. I snapped. You forged my information. Relax, Noah, she said, laughing lightly like this was all a joke. It's not like I was going to let it go unpaid. I just needed a quick approval and figured you wouldn't mind. Wouldn't mind, I repeated. You committed fraud. Do you even understand what that means? You're so dramatic, she said, groaning. You have good credit. You'll be fine, Emily. I said, my voice shaking. You used my identity to take out $18,000. That's not fine. That's illegal. Oh, please, she said, her tone sharp now. You always act like you're this moral hero. You can afford it. You make enough to cover a stupid loan if it came down to it. I couldn't even speak for a moment. The entitlement in her voice, the complete lack of guilt, made my skin crawl. I'm calling the company back, I said finally, and the police if I have to. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. You'd ruin my life. You already tried to ruin mine, I said, and hung up. I expected the fallout to come from her. Angry texts, threats, tears, but it came from Dad instead. He called within an hour, his voice full of fire. What did you say to your sister that she committed fraud? I said flatly. Because she did. He let out a long, angry breath. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I'm sorry. What? She didn't mean any harm, he said, like he was talking to a child. She just panicked. She needed money for her car repairs and didn't want to bother us. She didn't want to bother you, I said incredulously, so she stole my information instead. Watch your tone, he warned. You think you're perfect because you've got a good job, but you don't understand how hard things are for her. Because she makes them hard. I yelled, "Dad, this isn't a mistake, it's a crime. Do you realize she used my social security number?" "She's family," he said after a long pause. "We protect family." I closed my eyes, exhaling shakily. "You mean we protect her?" He didn't deny it. "You'll figure out how to fix it." "You're smart." That line, that quiet dismissive, "you'll figure it out," broke something in me. I'd been figuring it out my whole life, fixing problems I didn't cause, paying for mistakes that weren't mine, carrying responsibility for people who refused to carry their own. And now, when my sister committed a literal crime, their first instinct was to protect her. I hung up without saying goodbye. The next few days were chaos. I spent hours on calls with banks, lenders, and credit bureaus trying to lock down my accounts. I had to file a police report to prove I hadn't been the one who applied for the loan. The officer I spoke with was polite but blunt. "You'll probably need to press charges for this to go anywhere." He said that word again, charges against my own sister. I didn't want to. I really didn't. But when I thought about what would happen if I didn't, how she'd just do it again, maybe even ruin my credit permanently, I knew I didn't have a choice. So I filed. That night, I sat in the dark with a glass of whiskey and stared at my phone, half expecting it to explode with angry messages. But it was quiet. For the first time in months, my phone was completely eerily silent until it wasn't. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a notification, a message from Mom. "How could you?" That was it. 3 words, no context needed, then another came. "She's your sister. You're destroying her life over a misunderstanding. Then we raised you better than this." I didn't respond. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Dad called. His voice was low, shaking with fury. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The cops showed up here. They talked to your mother. She's been crying for hours. She used my name to steal money," I said quietly. "She was desperate. She broke the law." "You're heartless," he spat. "You're not welcome in this house anymore." I didn't even argue. "Okay," I said softly. "Then I won't come back." He hung up. By morning, my phone was flooded again. 30 missed calls this time, mostly from Mom and Emily. But one message stood out. It wasn't angry or dramatic. It was from Emily herself. Just one sentence. "You'll regret this, Noah." And something about that chilled me to the bone. That day I went to work like nothing happened, but my mind was somewhere else. I kept waiting for the next shoe to drop. And sure enough, it did. In a way I never could have predicted. When I got home that evening, there was a letter taped to my door. No name, no return address. Just my name written in sloppy handwriting. I recognized immediately. Emily's. Inside was a single piece of paper, a photocopy of the police report I'd filed, the one with my name, address, and case number. At the bottom in pen, she'd written, "You really want to play this game? Let's see who wins." I just stood there in my doorway staring at it, my stomach twisting. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was a threat. And over the next few days, the harassment started. Anonymous emails, fake subscription signups, my number posted to random online listings. A pizza delivery I never ordered showing up at midnight. I knew it was her. Every petty passive-aggressive stunt screamed Emily's name. I changed my number, closed my old email, even alerted my office's HR department in case she tried contacting them. It was exhausting, humiliating, and exactly what she wanted. But then she crossed another line, one that made my decision to leave feel like the only way out. A week before my move, I got a call from HR. "Hey, Noah, sorry to bother you," my manager said cautiously. "But we received a message about you this morning, an anonymous email. It accuses you of financial misconduct." My heart dropped. "What?" "It's obviously nonsense," he said quickly. "But I figured you should know. It came from someone claiming to be a relative. I didn't even have to ask. I knew exactly who it was. Emily wasn't content with ruining my credit. She wanted to ruin my reputation too." I left work early that day and drove straight to the airport to finalize my move arrangements. I remember sitting in the car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, realizing just how far she'd gone and how far I'd let it get before finally standing up for myself. That night, I made a promise. Once I got to Seattle, I wasn't just cutting ties. I was burning the bridge to ashes. But before I could even leave, Emily wasn't done. Because the next morning, I woke up to something that made my blood run cold. Something that turned this whole family drama into a full-blown war. And it started with my own parents. When I say that morning changed everything, I mean it. It was the kind of day where reality doesn't hit all at once. It seeps in slowly like a leak in a ceiling you didn't know was there until the whole roof starts sagging. I woke up to dozens of new notifications, and before I even unlocked my phone, I had that sinking feeling in my gut that something had gone terribly wrong. The first thing I saw was my mother's post on Facebook. It was a long, emotional wall of text written in that passive-aggressive tone she used whenever she wanted to guilt people without sounding like she was guilting them. The post started with, "Sometimes the people you love most are the ones who hurt you the deepest," and ended with, "Family isn't about blood, it's about loyalty." She never mentioned names, of course, but anyone who knew us knew exactly who she was talking about. The comment section was full of sympathy. "Stay strong, Linda." Heart emoji. "You raised your kids right. Sometimes they just lose their way. God will bring healing." And then there was Emily's comment right near the top. "Love you, Mom." Some people just forget where they came from. That one stung like acid. I sat there staring at the screen, scrolling through strangers, pitying my family for what I apparently did to them. And for the first time in years, I actually felt something break inside me. Not anger, not even sadness, just exhaustion. Like all the air had gone out of me at once. I didn't respond. I didn't post some long defensive essay. I just logged off. But the damage had already been done. My extended family, cousins, aunts, even a few old neighbors started messaging me privately. "Hey, are you okay? Your mom's really upset. What's going on? I thought you and Emily were close. And the worst one, you shouldn't turn your back on your family. Noah, they won't be around forever." That line played on repeat in my head all day. They won't be around forever. It sounded like both a warning and a curse. When I got to work, I tried to bury myself in tasks, but my focus was shot. My chest felt tight all day, my mind spinning through what ifs. What if they started showing up at my apartment? What if they called my employer again? What if, God forbid, they found a way to mess with my new job offer? By the time I got home, my building's leasing office had left a note on my door. I opened it, expecting some random maintenance update, but instead found a notice. "A complaint has been filed regarding harassment and noise disturbances linked to your unit." My hands went cold. I hadn't had a single party, hadn't even played loud music. Then I noticed the attached evidence, a screenshot of a Yelp review about me. Someone had left a 1-star review for my apartment building, claiming a tenant named Noah Carter is constantly screaming at people over the phone, slamming doors, and threatening neighbors. Management should evict him before he hurt someone. I read that review 5 times numb. It was fake. Obviously, I'd never even spoken to a neighbor beyond a polite nod. But I knew that writing style, the dramatics, the exaggerated victimhood. Emily. I marched downstairs to the leasing office holding the letter. The manager, a kind woman named Rachel, looked mortified when I showed her. "Oh my gosh, Noah, we didn't take this seriously. We just had to log the complaint because it mentioned safety. We'll remove it once we confirm it's fake." I nodded, forcing a smile. "I know who did it," I said quietly. "I just don't have proof." Rachel frowned. "If this person is targeting you, document everything. Keep screenshots and be careful. Okay, be careful." I hadn't realized until that moment how much those 2 words applied. I wasn't just dealing with a manipulative sister anymore. I was dealing with someone unhinged enough to risk my home, my job, and my sanity just to get revenge. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, scrolling through old photos, family trips, birthdays, holidays. There was Emily smiling in every picture, arms around me like we were the closest siblings in the world. And behind the photos, I could almost hear her voice. "You'll regret this." The next morning, I decided to check my credit report again just to be sure everything was locked. And that's when I saw it. Another loan inquiry, this time from a different lender. Same name, same address as before. I felt sick. I'd already filed the fraud report. The bank had frozen my accounts. How is she still trying? I called the lender, and sure enough, someone had tried to open another loan using my information again, listing my parents' address. Thankfully, it had been flagged and denied, but the representative told me something that made my stomach twist. "Mr. Carter, this was the 3rd attempt this week. 3rd, I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. My own sister was actively trying to ruin me, and my parents, judging by their silence, were either ignoring it or helping her." Later that afternoon, my dad called. His tone was flat, almost rehearsed. "I just want you to know we're disappointed, Noah. We didn't raise you to treat family like enemies." "Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She's committing identity theft. Do you even understand how serious this is? She told us, you exaggerated everything." He said like that settled it, that it was all a misunderstanding. "A misunderstanding," I snapped. "She used my name to take out loans. She forged my signature. She said, you gave her permission," he said quietly, "that you're just embarrassed now that the police got involved." My jaw tightened. "You actually believe that?" He hesitated, and that silence told me everything I needed to know. "I see," I said. You're choosing to believe the person who's been lying her whole life over the one who's been bailing her out for years. You're twisting this, he said quickly. We're just trying to keep the peace. Peace? I laughed bitterly. You mean silence? You want me to shut up and take it? You always have. There was a long pause. Then he said coldly, maybe you should think about what you're saying. You've been very self-centered lately. And with that, he hung up. Something inside me just snapped. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, phone still in my hand, feeling like someone had scooped out my insides and left nothing behind. That night, I walked outside past the quiet rows of parked cars, the hum of the city fading into white noise. I ended up sitting on a bench near the edge of the parking lot, staring at the horizon where the streetlights bled into the fog. For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. No family, no safety net, just me. But the thing about hitting rock bottom is that it's quiet. You stop flailing. Stop trying to convince anyone to understand you. You start thinking differently. I remember whispering to myself, you can't fix them. It was such a simple sentence, but it felt like a revelation. I'd spent my entire life being the fixer, the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who always cleaned up after everyone else's mess. But maybe it was time to stop fixing and start protecting myself. That night, I opened a new document on my laptop titled Exit Plan. It wasn't some dramatic scheme, just a list of steps: cancel old bank accounts, change all passwords, get a new phone number, move job paperwork to new address, legal consultation, regarding fraud case, no contact after move. I stared at that last line for a long time. No contact after move. It sounded harsh, but I knew it was the only way. Over the next few days, I moved in silence. I didn't tell anyone my exact move date. I rerouted my mail to a P.O. box. I packed everything myself. I even took time off work under the pretense of personal reasons so I could disappear quietly. Then 3 days before my flight, I got one last call. It was from Mom. She sounded broken. Noah, please don't do this. Do what I asked. Run away, she said, voice trembling. We're family. We can fix this. Mom, I said softly. You can't fix something you refuse to see is broken. She started crying. You're punishing us. You're punishing your sister. She made a mistake, but she's still your family. Mom, I said this isn't punishment. It's self-preservation. There was a long silence. Then in that same small voice, she said, if you go, don't expect us to be here when you decide to come back. It hurt. Of course it did. But I didn't argue. I just said, I hope one day you'll see why I had to, and hung up. When I boarded that flight 3 days later, I didn't cry. I didn't even look back. I just stared out the window as the plane lifted off, my hometown shrinking beneath the clouds. For the first time in years, I felt free. But freedom has a strange taste when it comes after betrayal. It's sweet for a second, then leaves an aftertaste of guilt and fear. I thought I'd left it all behind. I thought distance would fix what they broke. I was wrong again because 2 weeks after moving to Seattle, I got an email that made my blood run cold. It wasn't from my sister. It wasn't from my parents. It was from my HR department. The subject line read, Urgent Compliance Review regarding allegations. And attached was a forwarded email from someone using my sister's name. It began, to whom it may concern, I feel obligated to report ongoing unethical financial behavior by your employee, Noah Carter. When I opened that email, my stomach dropped so hard it felt like I'd been punched. I read it once, then again, then a third time, just to be sure my brain wasn't inventing words. But no, it was all there, plain as day. Emily had sent a long, detailed message to my company's HR department pretending to be some concerned acquaintance. She accused me of financial fraud, claimed I abused my position to steal client funds, and even attached what looked like bank statements, fake ones with my name on them. I just sat there at my desk staring at the screen as my heart pounded. I could feel the walls closing in. I'd barely been at my new job 2 weeks. I'd worked for years to earn this position, sacrificed everything for a chance to start fresh. And now my own sister was trying to burn it all down before I'd even settled in. HR had marked the email as potentially defamatory, but they still needed to conduct a preliminary review, which meant I had to sit through an hour-long meeting explaining that, no, I hadn't stolen a cent, and yes, I could provide verification for every bank account transaction and line of income one had. It was humiliating sitting there trying to keep my voice calm while my manager and HR rep looked at me with polite but weary eyes. They believed me, I think, at least mostly. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. A seed of doubt had been planted. When I got home that night, I poured myself a drink and just sat on the couch staring at the ceiling. My mind replayed every step of my life that led me here. Every moment I tried to do the right thing. Every time I'd chosen family over myself. And this was the reward, being slandered by the very people I'd once protected. For a while, I just let myself sit in the anger, the grief, the sense of betrayal so deep it almost felt surreal. But at some point between the second and third drink, something inside me hardened. I realized I couldn't keep reacting to their chaos. Every time I defended myself, I was playing their game, a game designed to make me look guilty, desperate, unstable. I needed to stop defending and start building. I needed to become untouchable. That was the night everything changed. The next morning, I made a decision. I was done being reactive. I was going to outgrow them so completely that they'd choke on their own bitterness. It started with my work. I threw myself into it. I stayed late every night, volunteered for projects, took the hardest assignments no one else wanted. Within months, my name started getting noticed by higher-ups. I got an invitation to lead a small development team on a new initiative. It wasn't just a title. It came with autonomy, respect, and a raise big enough that I actually laughed when I saw the number. I also started saving aggressively, investing carefully, learning every financial trick I could. If Emily and my parents wanted to make me the villain for hoarding money, fine. I was going to become the kind of villain who never had to rely on anyone again. Outside of work, I built walls, not emotional ones, practical ones, new phone number, new email. I switched banks entirely. I even legally changed my mailing address to a virtual office suite so no one would ever know where I lived unless I wanted them to. And for the first time in my life, I started saying no without guilt. No, I wasn't answering their calls. No, I wasn't sending a little something for birthdays. No, I wasn't going to let them back in no matter how many messages they left. At first, it was eerie silence. Then came the predictable wave of guilt trips. My mom sent me a card that said, "Families fight, but love always wins." With a note inside, "We're ready to forgive you whenever you're ready to come home." That last line made me laugh. Forgive me. Like I was the one who needed forgiving. I didn't respond. Then Dad tried. He left a voicemail, his tone full of forced warmth. "Hey son, just checking in. Your mom misses you. We're proud of how far you've come. Emily's been struggling lately. Maybe a little help would mean a lot. A little help." I almost admired the audacity. I deleted it and blocked the number. For the next 6 months, life got quieter and better. My new team crushed its first big project, earning company-wide recognition. My boss even pulled me aside after a meeting and said, "You've got a leadership mindset. You ever think about management?" I didn't say it out loud, but yeah, I had been thinking about it. Not just management ownership. I wanted to build something of my own, something no one could take credit for or destroy. So I started working nights and weekends on an app idea I'd been sitting on for years. It was a personal finance tool. Ironic, I know, designed to help young adults build savings habits and track spending. I called it Haven. At first, it was just a hobby. But as I built it out, I realized it could actually be something. My early prototype caught the attention of a startup accelerator in Seattle. I applied on a whim, not expecting much. And to my shock, I got in. They gave me mentorship, funding, and exposure. Suddenly, I was in meetings with investors learning pitch strategies, refining my business plan. For the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't running from something. I was running towards something. It was around this time that I got an unexpected email from an unknown address. Subject line: "We saw your story. I almost deleted it thinking it was spam. But when I opened it, it wasn't spam at all. It was from a journalist, someone writing an article on family financial boundaries and generational entitlement. She said she'd stumbled across one of my old Reddit posts from months earlier, one where I'd vented anonymously about my sister's fraud and my parents' reaction. She asked if I'd be willing to talk anonymously about the experience. At first, I hesitated, but then I thought, why not? If my story could help someone else see the warning signs early, maybe it was worth it. The article went live 2 weeks later. My name wasn't in it, but the quotes were mine, my voice, my pain, my warning. It blew up online. Thousands of comments. People sharing their own stories about manipulative siblings, toxic parents, and the guilt of walking away. Reading those comments was like therapy. For the first time, I realized I wasn't crazy. I wasn't heartless. I wasn't the villain. I was just someone who finally stopped bleeding for people who refused to stop cutting. That article became the catalyst for something bigger. Investors who'd read it started reaching out to Haven saying they loved the mission, helping people set financial boundaries and build independence. It was surreal. The very thing that almost destroyed me became the thing that fueled my success. A year later, Haven launched publicly. Within 6 months, it hit 500,000 downloads. Financial blogs started calling it the app that teaches you to say no. The irony wasn't lost on me. By then, I'd grown into someone I barely recognized. Calmer, sharper, deliberate. I had a small team working for me, a steady stream of revenue, and enough savings that I didn't flinch when I looked at my account balances. But more importantly, I had peace, until of course, the peace got interrupted. It was a Friday evening when my phone buzzed with a notification from LinkedIn, a connection request. The name made my heart stutter. Emily Carter. I hadn't seen or heard from her in almost a year. My immediate instinct was to block and move on. But then I noticed something strange. Her profile headline read, Financial Consultant Carter Family Enterprises. Carter Family Enterprises. News I say. I frowned. That wasn't real. My parents didn't own a business unless I clicked. The company page had been created just a month earlier. No website, no employees, just a tagline helping families rebuild trust and financial stability. I almost laughed. My sister, the same person who stole my identity, was now branding herself as a financial consultant, but the laughter faded when I saw the banner photo. It wasn't just Emily in it. It was her and my parents smiling, standing together in front of a house that looked very familiar. My childhood home. They'd turned the house into their office. And then I saw it. A pinned post, a photo of Emily shaking hands with someone in a suit captioned, "So grateful for new beginnings and second chances. Excited to build something that helps others after what our family went through." The comments were full of praise, people cheering her on, some even mentioning how brave she was for overcoming trauma caused by a selfish sibling. My chest tightened. My past, my pain had become her marketing strategy. I didn't comment. I didn't message her. I just stared at that page, realizing this wasn't over. Because if there's one thing I'd learned by now, it's that when people like Emily can't control you anymore, they'll try to control your story. And I wasn't about to let that happen. Not again. Because now I wasn't just her brother. I was someone with power, resources, and reach. And I was done letting her write my narrative. Seeing that LinkedIn page was like getting punched and smirked at the same time. There she was, my sister, the self-proclaimed financial consultant standing in front of our old house, smiling like a politician. The audacity wasn't new, but this time it had teeth. I wasn't just angry, I was impressed almost. She'd figured out how to weaponize reputation, but she'd forgotten one thing. Lies need believers to survive. And I had something she didn't. Proof, credibility, and a platform. For the next few days, I didn't do anything rash. I didn't message her, didn't call my parents. I just started gathering information. Late at night after my team wrapped up work on Haven, I pour a cup of coffee and go digging. I found that Carter Family Enterprises was registered as an LLC by my father. The address listed was our old home, the registration date just 2 months after I'd filed the fraud report against Emily. My guess they used the settlement money from selling my grandmother's old property, money that was supposed to be divided equally between us siblings. Except of course it never was. That part stung more than I wanted to admit. My grandmother had left that property to be split fairly among her grandchildren. Emily had insisted we wait before dividing it, claimed she'd handle the paperwork. I was busy at the time juggling work and moving, so I let it slide. Turns out she'd cashed it in and rolled it into their new business, a fraudulent business built on stolen inheritance. That irony was almost poetic, but I didn't want poetry. I wanted precision. That week, I called an old mentor of mine, Graham, a venture capitalist who'd backed my startup in the early days. Graham was one of those rare businessmen who still had a moral compass sharp as a blade with a memory like a steel trap. When he picked up, I said, "Graham, I need advice. Hypothetically speaking, what's the best way to expose a fraudulent company without getting dragged into the mud?" He laughed softly. "Hypothetically, that's a dangerous word. I'm serious." I said, "This company's built on lies, family ties, manipulation, maybe even stolen funds. I don't want revenge. I want truth." He paused for a moment. "Truth and revenge often share a road. You just need to decide which exit you're taking." I told him everything. Not every emotional detail, just the facts. The fake business, the fraud attempts, the inheritance theft. He listened quietly, then said, "File a complaint with the state's business bureau, but that'll take months. You want something faster?" "Yes?" "Then hit them where they thrive. Public perception. If she's using her story to get clients, prove her story is false." "How don't attack her directly," he said. "Let the truth surface naturally. People trust what looks like exposure, not accusation." That stuck with me, so I started planning. I contacted a friend who ran a small but respected personal finance podcast. We'd met during Haven's early publicity tour. She'd loved the app's mission about financial boundaries, and we'd kept in touch. I told her I wanted to do an episode on family financial manipulation based on real experiences, but anonymized. When we recorded it, I told the story like it wasn't mine. I used different names, slightly changed locations, and stripped the emotional fluff. Just facts. How a sibling used family guilt and forged documents, how parents enabled it, how the victim rebuilt from scratch. The episode blew up. Within days, comments poured in, people sharing similar experiences, thanking the guest for being brave enough to talk about it. And among the comments, a few users who claimed they recognized the fictional story. One even tagged Carter Family Enterprises under the post saying, "This sounds familiar." That's when things started to unravel. Apparently, my sister had been using my story, her twisted version of it, to gain sympathy clients. She'd built her business around the narrative of being the betrayed sibling, the one who'd been cut off by her cold-hearted brother after he embezzled family funds. But now with the podcast spreading and people connecting dots, that narrative started to crack. The irony, I didn't even have to reveal myself. Other people did it for me. A few sharp Redditors cross-referenced public LLC records and noticed something odd. The consultant running the company had been named in a fraud complaint the previous year. It spread like wildfire. Within days, financial forums and small business groups were sharing screenshots asking questions like, "Is this the same Emily Carter who's running that family enterprise?" By the end of the week, their Facebook page was flooded with negative comments, clients demanding refunds, people asking if the fraud story was true. I watched it unfold from my apartment, calm as ever, sipping coffee. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I knew before answering who it was. "Noah," came her voice. Tight, shaky. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," I said. People asked questions. "You ruined everything," she hissed. "My business, our reputation. You ruined it yourself." I interrupted, my voice steady. "I just stopped protecting you from the truth." She was silent for a moment, then said, "You think you've won? You think anyone cares about your sad little revenge? Mom and Dad will never forgive you." "I'm not looking for forgiveness," I said quietly. "Just closure." She hung up. For the first time, I didn't feel shaken by her anger. Just done. But the dominoes were still falling. A few weeks later, I got a call from a journalist, the same one who'd interviewed me for that first article about financial boundaries. She sounded excited. "Noah, you're not going to believe this," she said. "Remember that anonymous family business scandal that's been trending? Turns out it's tied to your old hometown. Some sources linked it to your sister." I feed surprise. "Wow, that's crazy." She laughed. "Yeah, crazy. We're working on a follow-up piece about how victims of financial abuse sometimes rebuild stronger than ever. We'd love to feature Haven again and maybe a redemption arc from your perspective." That was the moment I realized I didn't just survive. I'd flipped the script completely. The same story they tried to destroy me with had become my foundation for success. In the months that followed, Haven's user base doubled again. Investors came knocking. We partnered with several nonprofits focused on financial education and family debt awareness. I even started a scholarship fund in my grandmother's name for students studying business ethics. One night after a late investor meeting, I opened my email and saw a new message in my spam folder. The sender, Emily Carter. The subject line, "You win." The message was short, just 5 words. "They lost the house. You happy?" I stared at it for a long moment. Part of me wanted to feel guilt, but I didn't. Not this time. Because that house wasn't just theirs. It had been my grandmother's. It had been stolen, twisted into a lie. Losing it wasn't punishment. It was consequence. Still, I didn't reply. I archived the email, turned off my computer, and stepped out onto my balcony. The city lights stretched below me, endless, alive, and free. And for the first time in years, I felt weightless. But I wasn't done yet, because 2 weeks later, I got an unexpected letter. Not from Emily, not from my parents, from a lawyer. The letter was simple. Notice of civil action. Carter Family Enterprises versus Noah Carter. They were suing me for defamation, and I smiled because if they wanted to fight in court, I was ready. I had receipts, and this time I wasn't playing defense. The lawsuit hit like a thunderclap, not because I was surprised, but because it was so perfectly them. When manipulation stopped working, when sympathy ran out, they reached for the last weapon they had, intimidation. But this time, I wasn't the same kid they could guilt into silence. I wasn't scared. I was ready. Their claim was ridiculous. Defamation and intentional emotional distress. Emily and my parents had filed it together, claiming that my false public statements had caused the collapse of their business and irreparable damage to their reputations. They wanted $250,000 in damages. I remember sitting at my desk reading the complaint and laughing. Not out of arrogance, but out of disbelief that they still didn't understand who they were dealing with. The old Noah, the people pleaser, the fixer, the one who apologized just to keep the peace, would have been terrified, but that guy was gone. I forwarded the document to my attorney, Lauren, a sharp, composed woman I'd met through the startup accelerator. When she called me later that day, she sounded almost amused. So she said, "Your family really decided to sue you, apparently." I said, "Guess they want their 15 minutes." Lauren chuckled softly. "Don't worry, this is paper thin. They're the ones who defamed you. Once we file a counterclaim, they'll realize they picked the wrong fight." I trusted her completely. Over the next few weeks, we gathered everything. Every screenshot, email, fraudulent document, voicemail, and even the police report from Emily's loan scam. Lauren's paralegal organized it all into a mountain of evidence so thorough it could have been a Netflix special. When the pretrial hearing date arrived, I flew back to my hometown for the first time in over a year. The moment I landed, I felt that old mix of dread and familiarity, like walking through a dream you thought you'd woken up from. The courthouse was small, the kind where everyone knew each other. As I walked through the doors, I spotted them sitting together. My parents and Emily, a united front of quiet hostility. My father's jaw was set like stone. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed but sharp. And Emily, she looked tired, pale, a little older. But her smirk was still there. When our eyes met, she didn't look ashamed. She looked angry. I didn't say a word. I just nodded politely to my attorney and took my seat. The judge, a gray-haired man with the patience of a saint, began reviewing the case. The plaintiff's lawyer, an older gentleman, clearly out of his depth, started with an emotional monologue about a family torn apart by lies. He painted Emily as a victim, a young entrepreneur, whose reputation was destroyed by a jealous brother's vendetta. Lauren let him finish, expression unreadable. Then she stood. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "the defense would like to present evidence contradicting every single claim made in this complaint." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't posture. She just started laying out the truth. First, the fraudulent loan documents, then the bank statements, then the identity theft report with Emily's name on it, then the signed affidavit from the financing company confirming that she'd used my information, and finally the social media posts, the Facebook rant, the LinkedIn business scam, the fake Yelp review, and the threatening note she'd left on my door. The courtroom was silent, except for the rustle of paper. Every detail, every receipt, every trace of manipulation was right there under oath. At one point, the judge actually looked over his glasses and said, "Ms. Carter, are you aware that these documents you submitted to financial institutions using your brother's identity constitute multiple felonies?" Emily's face went pale. Her lawyer tried to interject, but the judge cut him off. "No, counselor, I'd like to hear from your client." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then in a trembling voice, she muttered, I didn't mean to cause harm." Lauren didn't even blink. "Intent doesn't erase consequence," she said. My parents just sat there stunned. My mother's hands were clasped so tightly, her knuckles turned white. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. By the end of that hearing, the case was over before it even began. The judge dismissed their complaint with prejudice, meaning they couldn't file again. Not only that, but he granted our motion for legal fees. They'd have to pay for my attorney costs in full. And as for Emily's fraud, the judge referred it to the district attorney for potential criminal investigation. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just felt quiet. Outside the courthouse, Lauren turned to me. "You handled that better than most people would have." "I didn't win," I said softly. "I just stopped losing." Speak. She gave me a small nod. Sometimes that's what victory looks like. That night, I checked into a hotel downtown. I thought I'd feel vindicated, but what I mostly felt was empty. It's strange. You spend years waiting for justice, and when it finally arrives, it doesn't come with trumpets or applause. It's just silence. The kind of silence where you finally realize you don't owe anyone anything anymore. The next morning, I went back to my childhood home one last time. It had been foreclosed after their business collapsed. The for sale sign leaned crookedly in the yard. I walked up the cracked driveway, leaves crunching under my shoes, and looked at the house that had once been the center of everything. Birthdays, holidays, family dinners. Through the front window, I could see the old living room empty, bare. It struck me how symbolic that was. A house built on memories now hollowed out by greed. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from an unknown number. "You got what you wanted. I hope you're proud of yourself." No name, but I didn't need one. It was Mom. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed back. I didn't want to win. I just wanted peace. She never replied. A month later, the investigation into Emily's fraud quietly moved forward. She accepted a plea deal. Probation, restitution payments, and community service. I didn't attend the hearing. I didn't need to see her face again. I'd already seen what I needed to. The truth laid bare. As for my parents, They sold what little they had left and moved in with distant relatives in another state. No calls, no letters, just silence, and I let it stay that way. Life, meanwhile, kept moving forward for me. Haven reached 1 million users that year. We expanded internationally, got featured in major finance publications, and even landed a partnership with a university program teaching students how to manage money. People started calling me the guy who turned pain into purpose. I never corrected them. It wasn't exactly wrong, but I never told anyone the full story. Not the Reddit posts, not the courtroom scene, not the text messages that still sometimes woke me up at night. Because some stories aren't meant for sympathy. They're meant for closure. One evening, months later, I got an email from my bank confirming that the last of Emily's restitution payments had gone through. It was the last tie connecting us. A legal reminder that once upon a time she'd stolen from me, and now finally it was repaid. I deleted the email, leaned back in my chair, and looked out at the Seattle skyline glowing against the night. For the first time, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't bitter. I was free. I poured myself a drink, raised the glass to the window, and said quietly to no one in particular, "Here's to peace that doesn't need permission." Then I turned off my phone, closed my laptop, and let the silence stay. Because after everything, the manipulation, the betrayal, the years of guilt, I finally understood the truth. Walking away wasn't losing. It was winning quietly, and that was enough.